The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
From Trnava, Slovakia, the Short Time Wrestling Podcast, making a repeat appearance for our guest today. Last time you heard this guy on the show, 1, he was sitting in his hammock in Michigan. 2, his kids were significantly younger. 3, Short Time was in episode 74. I was still with the open mat the last time I think I did this one. I don't even know. But Eric Olanowski, now what is your official title with UWW? So we got to figure that out first.
Web content and social media coordinator for United World Wrestling.
So I started as a coordinator at USA Wrestling. So did Taylor Miller, who is shadowing us and not pictured on this show. Well, because it's a podcast, it's audio. But Eric has actually assumed a full-time role with UWW, or as they say over here, UWW. UWW. And we are at the Junior World Championships 2018, Trnava, Slovakia. Eric, first of all, impressions of Slovakia thus far?
So far, so good. Yesterday went to a football game.
Like football, like Euro football, not like oblong pigskin ball that we call football.
Yeah, Taylor sent me a text. We're going to a soccer game, and I said wrong, F-U-T-B-O-L, so that was
football.
Good.
Well, she's also proficient and fluent in Spanish, so football is how she probably says it anyway.
Gol de Americano.
Taylor doesn't have a microphone. She can't answer any of this stuff.
Right, awkwardly sitting to our right.
Yes, Andy Hamilton from Track Wrestling just recently vacated our side. He was showing you about the orange juice in Paris last year.
Yes.
But back to Slovakia. We went to the football game. It was me, you, Taylor, Michaela Engel, Nate Engel's wife. Nate showed up for a little bit, but it was a Saturday. And a beautiful day for football here in Trnava, but it was a wild experience, wasn't it?
Yeah,
there was a fire.
But my brother was asking me, what are your impressions of the
which brother? You got 90 of them.
Christian. He said, what are your first impressions of European football? Told him about the fire and everything. So it was. I loved it. I'll go back Thursday if we have time.
I think that'll be during a finals, which is unfortunate because it's weird. I was like, man, this is the fastest soccer game I've ever been to. And you go, they're all the same length.
90 minutes.
90
across
minutes,
the world.
Maybe a 10 to 15 minute halftime. But so far, I walked around, found, I'm a fan of the craft beer. Found basically a bomb shelter type of bar last 2 nights and have sampled the local fare. Had some pretty good food here in the hotel. But so how many trips is this for you so far, this calendar year with UWW?
Oh, man, I've been all over the world. I started with Krasnoyarsk, so I went to Siberia in January.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was a trip of a lifetime.
Michigan can get cold in the wintertime, but it's nothing like Siberia.
No, it was negative 30 while we were there, and...
You know we call that Minnesota? Tuesday.
Tuesday, yeah.
No.
It was, I want to say I've been on 10 trips, something like that, 8 to 10.
Are you Delta United? What's your character?
Delta.
Okay, yeah. So
Delta
you've got to be platinum by now, right?
Yes. I just got it. I flew to China for the China Open, and that was nice. They hooked me up with the platinum status.
Yeah. Did you get the business class seat, or were you in steerage the whole time?
No, I sit back with the peasants.
Yes,
yeah.
With the peasants. How are the accommodations in steerage, Mr. Dawson? Wow, a Titanic reference on the show. But so last time we talked, again, it was 4 years ago. I mean, we've talked obviously since then, but last time you were on the show, you were working with Big Ten Network, doing a lot of student U broadcasts for Michigan State. You've done some stuff with ESPN3, with Central Michigan and the MAC and the MAC conference and such. And explain how you went from IT guy in the real world to working in the wrestling media with UWW.
Well, I mean, it was a long time coming, but 5 years ago, I graduated from college, and I loved wrestling. Never wanted to get out of the sport and wanted to find a way that I can make an impact aside from on the mat because my knees are shot and I had to support my family, and I didn't think that I would be able to do so in the wrestling world full time. So I took a position where I was making good money, and it just got to be too much with the travel from working side jobs with UWW, and
it's kind of hard not to say UWW, isn't it?
So, I took the opportunity to reach out in 2015 to Tim Foley, there was a posting on United World Wrestling's homepage, and it said, if you're looking, if you have any work from website on a back end, please reach out to me. We're looking for somebody to work the World Championships, and I wanted to go because it was in Las Vegas. So reached out to him, and then it's just continued to grow from there. But I couldn't not get back in the sport. I love it. And I was sitting at a desk, and I actually got in trouble because I was going through the World Championship rosters a couple of years ago, and I was doing research while I was working my other job. And my boss came up to me, and she said, we need to figure out what you did today. Please put together a spreadsheet of time you spent on specific tasks. And the only thing I did all day was World Championship research. And I knew at that point it was time to get out because it wasn't for me. I was thinking about wrestling while I should have been doing my other job. So why not think about wrestling while I'm doing my wrestling job?
Yeah, these jobs are few and far between. It's if you don't make them yourself. I mean, there's actually, USA Wrestling's got an opening, and it's very, very, very rare that those positions open up. Matter of fact, Taylor, who was sitting there, filled that particular post a couple years ago, and then I actually filled it years before then. And so in between, we had old BDI who was on the in there with us. But yes, it's my show. I can say that. So now you're jet setting around the world. And a lot of this stuff is writing, and background wise, you didn't have a whole journalistic background. I mean, how has it been like for you to evolve? It's a lot of press release stuff. It's not a whole lot of feature writing yet, but how do you feel your writing has evolved since this? Okay, there's definitely a written component to this gig.
Yeah, that was the one thing that Foley questioned when bringing me on. I had a background in social media. I helped multiple media outlets with their social media accounts, but the writing part, I didn't have a background in. You are correct, but it was all a learning opportunity, and I still learn to this day. It's difficult. I mean, I didn't have confidence, and I'm sure I mean, when I put that first piece out, I was reading it 7, 8, 9 times, and it's always good to have an extra eye because you write something and it
is hard to edit your own work.
It's so difficult because what you say in your mind, you read on the paper, but when someone else reads it, it's totally different than what you wanted to say. So having extra eyes on it, and I'm getting more confident, and before I got here, I still look up, every day I'm trying to get better at writing because that's the gig. I want to get the most information out the best way possible, and I still need to grow at writing, but it's been a learning experience this year, to say the least. One
thing that, and I've done some work with UWW in the PR aspect, at times, and is it difficult to try to think globally?
Yes.
In terms of writing, it's like, okay, yeah, this is thing. Yeah, he's a national champ at Michigan State, or like you're saying, say if you're writing about Franklin, how hard is it for the global community doesn't care about American college wrestling statistics?
It was difficult, especially having American ties, to try and cut that out. But now that I've been around the world and I've seen these wrestlers, I've been around them, I've got to talk with them, I learned their personality, so it's easier now than it was the first couple of months, because the first tournament was the Ivan Urigan, so Logan Stieber's out there, and you want to give the American fans something to grasp onto, so you want to give them enough information about who, they know who Logan Stieber is.
Because they're going to go to the mat.com for the American viewpoint.
Yes.
But, you still got to make sure, you keep an even keel. Is it hard to not have a rooting interest?
It is. And I've learned that, and I still get some stuff. I will say for the Asian Games, Iranian fans were not happy that the content wasn't going up on United World Wrestling. But they don't understand that we didn't own that.
It's not
content.
their event. Yeah.
It's not. So much like where you were at the Commonwealth Games in Australia, they wanted content from the Commonwealth Games, from the Asian Games, but we don't own that content, and they don't know that, and it's hard to explain. So I've got better at Google translating the Farsi to Cyrillic.
Last year I had that as Reza Kayalp at the Europeans. He had won his 5th European championship, but in the middle of there was a European Games.
Yes.
not the same thing. Technically, yes, they don't have the championships the same year they have a games, but, and then it was on the UWW Instagram account because the Turks love the Instagram. It's like, nope. And Facebook, it was like, no, it's 6 times. It's 6 times. Like, no, it's 5 European championships, 1 European game. So I even said it in the voiceover afterwards and like had to, I'm just, hey, it's 5 championships. And a games. It's different. So that's one thing that people also tend to bring, it's like, it's Commonwealth Championship, Commonwealth Games, different events.
Yeah. You were at the Commonwealth Games.
That was great.
I could only imagine. That's
I
one
love
trip.
Australia.
And how long were you there?
I was there. Actually, it was only a 3-day competition, so I was only there 5 days.
Yeah.
So it was a short trip.
How about the one thing I remember about that is the Blessing Oberududu when she beat Danielle Lepage, and her coach had to carry Lapage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well,
it looks French, but it's not. She's from Alberta.
Okay.
So,
but yeah,
interesting fact about Alberta: there's no rats in Alberta. Look that up. Google that. Yeah, if you're listening, Google rats in Alberta. Seriously.
What is it? Why
they don't allow rats? Like you can't even have a pet rat in Alberta. Anyway, back to Blessing Oberududu.
Yeah, Oberududu. So, do you remember her coach carrying her back?
Yeah.
It was the most dramatic win I've ever seen in my entire career. She collapsed, walked from the center of the mat to her coach, collapsed, and he had to carry her back.
Yeah, the Nigerians were pumped because they had a really good tournament.
Great tournament.
They had a tournament. One thing I also remember about that, 48-year-old Kevin Wallen.
Yes.
From Jamaica, Mon.
Yes.
It was on the World Wrestling Resource podcast. I encourage you to go back to listen to that episode. He was 48 years old, like is the entire Jamaican Wrestling Federation. So that was a cool story. But so back to writing, we were talking about writing for a global fan base. You didn't have a whole lot of freestyle wrestling growing up. Like you didn't go to Fargo and you weren't part of our teams out there. But so how was the transition going from, wrestling in college, being a folk style mainly guy to understanding one, the rule set, and two, the nuances of international wrestling from its, political structure all the way down to the officiating?
Well, my first wrestling match was freestyle.
That was because you're a military brat.
Yes. So I grew up in Japan, and my brother wrestled folk style in middle school, and then we moved to Japan, and we all started wrestling in Japan. So we started wrestling freestyle. So I knew the freestyle background, and that's I had a little bit of a freestyle background. And going back to my first match, I hit a gut on a guy going to the right side, and he stuck his arm out, broke his arm 2 spots.
Ooh.
Very first wrestling match, first period. It's still, I hear the cracks. I hear pop, pop. So, but back to your question, I've always followed freestyle. I did wrestle a little bit. Shout out to Matt Rosen. I beat him in a freestyle tournament in Virginia, but I wrestled a couple freestyle tournaments. But you're right, I wasn't on any national teams, never went to Fargo, but my dad just wanted me to focus on folk style because he knew that I wasn't going to go to the Olympics or anything like that, so why waste my time?
You ever look back at that, man, I wish I would have wrestled on some of those teams in Fargo?
Yeah, I really do, especially Greco. I would love to get tossed on my head one time. Seeing Kamal Bey, like watching the Makhmadov and Kamal Bey match from last year, that I'm looking forward. Hopefully that happens again this year. But so crazy. Taylor Miller just pulled up a photo of. Oh,
was it last year? Some of the folks out in Tampere were like, 61 points. He scored 61 points. For a match, he scored Greco. He scored 61 points.
So exciting to watch.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I know Kyvan Gadsden's nickname is Showtime, but I took a picture of Bay yesterday in front of the Apollo Hotel or building over there. I'm like, no, that's Showtime at the Apollo.
Yes.
With apologies to Kyvan, but
it's exciting. So I wish that I could get tossed on my head, but I've always followed it. I haven't freestyle. I'd like freestyle more than folk style, and it's crazy to say that I haven't wrestled it in 10 years. Mm-hmm. But the political part is the part that I'm still getting used to and trying.
And we don't mean politics like, the negative connotation, just how the structure works.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, one thing that is also prevalent is, there's referees from all over. We were actually talking about this a little bit, is, at breakfast where, referees, the American perspective on international wrestling, everything's corrupt. Well, you made an interesting point. It's like, this referee's not going to blow a call on purpose at, like, the Poland Open, because it's like, you're not going to ruin his career over a call at this event.
Right. And that's the thing that gets me, is when I see all these comments coming in from American fans that, this is corrupt, and it's we have to get away from that. If you want the sport to grow, I mean, you putting that out there it's not helping the sport in any way. These referees are here to do a job. Yes, they may make a mistake, but it's not. I mean, you see a blown call at the NCAA championships. Never once will you see a fan say this is corrupt. Because it's not. They just made a mistake. Pulling open.
There are certain fan bases who will allege that other fan bases or other teams get calls.
Yes.
But they don't throw the word corruption. Oh, yeah, Homer call. They'll say Homer call. Or,
right.
That's a Cowboy. He's going to get that call. That's a Hawkeye. They're going to get that call.
Yeah.
That's a Spartan. He's not going to get that call.
It's not that way. It's just they make
Monarchs never get that call.
They make mistakes, and I'll tell you just from being around these referees, if they make a mistake, they're looking back at the video, and Silvestri's he's asking our video team if he does see a mistake to create. And you as an example, you said that you called a call correct, and he came to you and said, "I'm using this video with your commentary to try and make this better."
Yeah,
so
some of those refs weren't happy with that,
right? But you're right. It does. It's iffy.
Well, with your world travels, too, you got to go to Dagestan this year. Talk about that experience.
Yeah.
Because I saw that on the schedule, and I'm like, there are a few places I really don't want to go. I do want to go, but I don't want to go. That's probably one of those that I'm like,
And I saw it, too, and did it raise an eyebrow? Absolutely.
How does that conversation go with your wife?
Oh, man, it was when you Google Dagestan.
Nothing good comes up.
No, it doesn't, but.
Maybe a picture of Khabib.
Yeah, who I actually had an opportunity to interview while we were at the European Championships. He was there, very nice for the most part. Kind of didn't want to do the interview at first, but when we told him it's about growing Dagestan wrestling, he was into it. But yeah, the conversation comes up, and I just told her, listen, do not go on Google. Whatever you do not go on Google because you won't sleep. But Dagestan was, I mean, as an American journalist, you don't have a lot of opportunities to go to.
Do you tell people that you're an American journalist?
I have a flag on our credentials posted with the American flag on it. And it was scary at first when you step there and you fly into Mahachkala and it's beautiful. You fly in, the airport is one runway. So you have the runway and it ends. There's an end to the runway. The plane has to make a U-turn and come back. And you land, and you're in between the Caspian Sea on your left and the Caucasus Mountains on your right, and it's flat land, and it's beautiful. I was telling Taylor Miller at breakfast, the best tomatoes I ever had were in Dagestan because they don't use no preservatives, no additives. It's just you're getting what you expect, and it's a tomato, and you think...
There is no Whole Foods in Dagestan. That's just what they are.
Yeah. But it was to see Sadulayev in Dagestan win a European championship. The fans were...
No riots this year?
No.
Okay,
I
wow.
did see one fight. It was somebody took a seat of somebody else, and that was the only issue that I had. One of the best tournaments that I've ever been to, and I look back on my trip, and I'm just so fortunate that I had the opportunity to do it. And I could have questioned it and said, I don't think this is safe to do, but to be an American journalist and cover wrestling in Krasnoyarsk at the Ivan Urigan and the European Championships in Dagestan, that's something, it's a highlight of my career. I look back at it now, and I'm really fortunate to have sat in the seat that I did and get to cover wrestling in arguably the greatest region on earth.
Yeah, I mean, how many people come from Dagestan that aren't just wrestling for the Russian Federation? I mean, we've seen, there's even a listing on the entry list is like previous federation, and you see RUC, the Russian Federation everywhere.
It was, and this may be, I get asked a lot, what is the craziest match that you've ever seen? And this might be one of them. It was Kudiay Magomedov of Italy, who is from Dagestan, wrestling Artur Nafanov, who is from Russia. So Kudiay Magomedov was winning, and they were going crazy to see the Dagestani fans cheering for an Italian against a Russian. The story behind that
because there's I may be wrong on my facts on it's close, but I know that in the Chechnya and Dagestan and those republics down there, not a whole lot of love for Mother Russia as a whole.
Correct. From what I was told, I don't think there is a lot.
It's a political powder keg down there.
It is. So that match was so cool, and I posted it on my Twitter a couple months ago just because I was watching it, and you have to listen to the fans and watch the action, because Artur Nefanov, who eventually went on to win the European Championships, obviously he beat Magomedov, but that was something to see.
So when we get to now the World Championships, we've already had a cadets. Now we've got a juniors. What have you seen from the level of competition? I mean, it seems like even some of the usual suspects are going to dominate, but you're seeing an emphasis on the age group championships now, and you're seeing countries like, oh, wait a minute, there's going to be a medal from this country and this country we haven't seen before. What are your overall thoughts on how wrestling is actually growing because of the age group World Championships?
It's impressive to see the level of wrestling, and we see it in America that these younger kids are starting to dominate at a younger age, and it's across the world now, you feel, but it's spreading out. I'll say that. So I think that's a sign that wrestling is growing, because these littler countries are starting to catch on to wrestling, and I want to say that UWW has been around, United World Wrestling, aside from FILA, for 4 years, and the growth over the last 4 years.
Actually, this would be the 5th World Championship. So 13, yes. 13 they dropped it. 13 had the new branding in Budapest.
Yes. Budapest.
Pest, like Depeche Mode.
Uh-huh.
Not quite.
But, yeah, I think it's good. I think it's growing.
Speaking of Budapest, which is actually how you actually say it, and Kyle Kleeman and Andy Hamilton have had this discussion on the mat, which is also on the network. I'm sure many know that, but we're coming up on the 5-year anniversary of wrestling being dropped and subsequently brought back into the Olympic fold, and that first World Championships with a new set of rules, a refreshed energy, a focus, strong focus and energized for the sport of wrestling. Budapest was like, that was the start of it. We saw the wrestler from Korea do Gangnam Style after he beats, a wrestler from the DPR Korea. Let's just say it, North Korea and South Korea. You can't. We'll talk about that in a minute. But you saw great action. You saw it was like just fire and excitement. And it seems like every World Championship since then has had great action. I think Tashkent was a little slow just because there were some issues technologically there. But, Vegas was great. Paris was outstanding. I mean, we've had killer World Championships the last 5 years.
Yeah. I look back. I started in 2015, and that was the Paris World Championships, and I thought, Vegas. I thought nothing is going to beat this. How could you get better? And then we go to Paris, and the storylines continue to grow, and the sport continues to. You look at from a marketing aspect, you look at the organization aspect. Everything in our sport is growing, and my brother asked me, my little brother Christian is coming to Budapest. He's coming to Budapest, and he said, do you think this is going to be the best World Championships yet? You throw in the 10 weight classes, storylines.
Dake and Taylor, like from an American perspective, it might be.
That's
Dake, Taylor, Burroughs, Snyder, Jaden Cox, all on the same team, like top half. Are you kidding me?
If we were to tell you 5 years ago that all of these guys would be on the same team, you would say there's no way you couldn't fit it. Now with the 10 weight classes, and you look at Russia's lineup too.
Let's not sleep on the fact that they've had 3s and 4s that probably could have medaled.
Yeah, we were talking yesterday about the potential. What would a Japanese junior, cadet or junior
women's team
do at the senior level World Championships? Because that's how deep they are. You look at Yui Sasaki did not compete at the Asian Championships or Asian Games because Yuki Iri beat her in the Emperor's Cup. So she's a
cool name for a tournament, by the way.
Emperor's Cup?
Emperor.
I wonder what the prize is for winning.
Lightsaber.
So.
And a small moon.
It is.
That's no moon.
This World Championships has to be the best ever. You look at...
It's a great city, too. Have you been to Budapest yet?
I have not.
That's probably one of my 2 favorite cities in the world. London and Budapest are like 1, 2, outside of, places in the U.S. But you got castles, and then you got it's weird. It's like and technologically it's there. I mean, mass transit's there. I mean, it's Eastern Europe, so you've got the look, but it's like, whoa, this is, you get a little bit of Eastern Europe, and then you get a little bit of like, whoa, this is not for people to think, oh, Budapest, it's got to be third world. No, this is an old city. It's got great history, and it's got castles.
There's old side and new side, right?
Yeah.
And it's separated by a river.
The Danube.
Yeah.
Or as Hazard said, Danube. I think he was trolling us at Final X.
Anthony Bourdain has a good show about Budapest, so I watched
need to look that up. I was a big fan of Bourdain.
Me too. Wow, that one hit me more than Mac Miller.
Who I actually caught some flack for my Mac Miller tweet. Like, I had no idea. He was actually playing. My wife and I went to Duluth for a weekend, one of our anniversary weekends, just to hang out. It's a cool city, by the way. And then we're like, who's this playing? Because my wife's second cousin, like her cousin's kids were in college at Duluth. I'm like, yeah. It's like, he's working the concert. I was like, who's playing? Who's performing? He's like, Mac Miller. I have no idea who that was. Well, night before, I'm in an elevator with his entourage, and it's just like, okay. So he wasn't in there, but caught a little flack for how I wasn't trying to bring up anything about the drug use in Mac Miller, but it was just like, oh, okay, there must be a group here. I'm not saying it's hip hop specifically, but it's like, yeah, it definitely smells like rock stars in here. Anyway, back to the let's not talk about dead celebrities, but I actually started listening to some of his stuff after the fact. You're right, it's pretty good. Just I'm not down with what the kids are saying these days. That's why I was totally lost on the Machine Gun Kelly lyrics with Jordan Oliver. But get off my lawn. Otherwise, back to like reality. We can get sidetracked here very easily here on short time. It's short attention span. But back to we have Budapest. We got Junior World Championships here. We've had the cadets. I mean, we got Astana coming up next year for Kazakhstan for the World Championships. I mean, and then into Tokyo. And let's also dial it back a little bit. You covered an Olympics.
Yeah. I've been thinking about that since the day I left Rio. I'm sure you have too. It's like an addiction. Those 5 rings run your life. After you've been to an Olympic Games, it's like none other. You see the level of production alongside the level of emotion that I'm thinking back to Dennis Kudla won the bronze medal, and I started crying. I couldn't help it. It was so emotional. Like his family, to see and to think about what had gone into...
Yeah, he was young when he won it, too.
He was young.
Yeah,
you're right.
18, 19.
Yeah. And to see the level of emotion and between him and his family hugging, and they're all bawling their eyes out, and just, you don't get the backstory. You don't know what they've been through to get to that point. You can only imagine what they had to get through to be... I mean, I know what my parents sacrificed for me just to get a scholarship to wrestling college. This guy is at the Olympic Games winning a medal at 19 years old. To think about what they had to do to get to that point, it's just so emotional. And then you add in Kyle Snyder, you add in everything else that happened. Roman Vlasov getting knocked out cold, coming back to compete to win a gold medal. It's just like, to be there was something that I'll never forget. I have pictures all over my house of me in Rio, and I still look at them and I'm like...
What's the one thing about Rio that, because it's been 2 years, and in your position now with UWW, you have to be a little bit more cautious on things, how you present things, whether it be on social media or whether it be in just conversations. Like, what is basically the general vibe that you can say about the Mongolian situation from 2 years ago? As I clear my throat.
I don't know. I don't even know how to answer. It was. I have a video of
Protest like a Mongolian.
I try and stay away from it. I mean, I don't tweet as much as I used to. I don't.
You get a lot of questions about it. They just wrestling people. Like, the kid down the street asked me, he goes, "What did you do when the Chinese guys started taking off their clothes?" I'm like, "Well, they were Mongolian." And yeah. I said, nothing.
Nothing. You can't.
Nothing. I was caution in one, winner by criteria, bronze medalist.
Yeah. And I believe that the only thing that I was thinking is Thomas Bach was there. Mm. The president of the IOC.
Of all days.
Of all days. And that's the only thing I was thinking is this, this can't be something that happens in front of Thomas Bach. Anybody else, especially with after getting the Olympic Games back, or getting wrestling back into the Olympic Games, Thomas Bach shows up, and seeing him, hug Maria Stadnik after she had lost to a Japanese wrestler for the 75th time in the last period. I mean, you look at her career to think
Yuri Tosaka, right?
Yeah. Yuri Tosaka.
Yuri Tosaka.
And it's the same. They beat her the same way. She scores first. They wait till late in the match.
They strike.
Take her down.
They're like cobras, man. They're just like, they're sitting there. You see it. They're all ready to go, and then boom.
Yui Sasaki did it at the Clip and Lady Open this year. Same exact situation, but. I don't want to touch too much on it just because it's a sensitive subject. But I will say that
there still is an emoji keyboard that has the Mongolians on it. I used that. Last, was it 2 years ago? South Dakota State wrestled Minnesota, and it was at Minnesota, and they stalled out the South Dakota State heavyweight and
corrupt officials.
The Gophers needed to fall. And they got a DQ, and so I used the image of like the Mongolian throwing down his shirt. And I was like, South Dakota State fans be like, and then that was just like one of my most liked tweets because everybody in wrestling knows what that image means.
Yeah.
It's like protest. But as far as moving forward, I mean, where do you think the sport can improve? I mean, where you can actually make a difference in terms of the media aspect. You got a couple of Americans running the content, with Foley and you. And what are some things that we could do to kind of maybe embrace? It's like talk to the American fans. Like, look, we're not saying we need to do folk style in college. What we're saying is this is the highest level of wrestling you can have. You probably should appreciate it a little bit more.
What I think. I mean, my goal is to create more awareness of athletes around the world. You see a lot of people know Frank Chamizo now, for example. You know his Cuban ties, he wrestles for Italy, and that's because he's not only promoting himself, but he's also promoting the sport. I mean, the kid wrestles.
And he's training in New York City.
He wrestles everywhere.
Yeah.
It's there. He
not afraid to take a loss either.
No. And that's the great thing about it is, I mean, we have to, we're implementing the ranking series events. We're implementing different things for United World Wrestling, and it's going to take some time. You don't plant a seed and you don't eat the vegetables or the fruits the day that you plant the seed. It's going to take some time for us to continue to develop these thoughts that we have, and I think that's it. Is just creating more awareness and trying to grow the sport. And I'm pumping out content as much as I can. I mean, I wake up, and the first thing I think of is who can I highlight today? And when I go to bed, who can I highlight tomorrow? It's wrestling is constantly on my mind. I'm working from sun up to sundown to try and grow this thing, and it's been a crazy year. I've been away from my family for over 2 months, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, I could feel you there. Last year I was away from my kid. 50 days I was gone from May to September, and places like Novi Sad, Serbia, which is like, believe it or not, if there's an event in Novi Sad, you take the assignment. Like Novi Sad is like one of my favorite, some of the best food I've ever had. Like you pay $5 for a plate of meat, and you get a side of meat with another side of meat, and it's just delicious. It's just amazing. I love Eastern European food.
Your world travels. You've learned that everything in America is so expensive.
I'm also trying to learn a thank you in every language. It's dakwim here.
Okay.
I think I can't quite. You got to sound like you got some phlegm.
You know
Russian? Let's see, spasiba.
Spasiba, yes.
Spasiba, and da, which is yes, and because apparently my license plate was saying yes in high school, but that's a different story. Anyway, anything you want to add, Eric Olanowski, here on the Not So Short Time Wrestling Podcast?
Oh, no. Just make sure you follow United World Wrestling on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook.
And the last time you were on the show, your Twitter handle was still at @EZE_show_nub.
Yes.
Now it's at Eric Olanowski.
Yeah, I was calling the Big Ten Championships, and they said, where can they follow you on Twitter? And I said, geez, do not do this to me. This is so embarrassing. So I changed it the day after to my name instead of...
Why didn't you change it right then and there?
I should have.
Hold on, let me change it.
Yeah.
Do you think like having somewhat of a Polish last name gives you a little more street cred internationally?
Yeah. Just go with I'm from Poland instead of the U.S.?
Well, it's like, everybody thinks that Baranowski from Poland is Tommy Bloodround's like cousin or something.
I didn't even put 2 and 2 together.
Yeah. Anyway, Eric, thanks, man. Been working with you all week.
Yes, sir.
The Short Time Wrestling Podcast is proudly outfitted by Compound Clothing. Shirts, singlets, custom gear orders, everything you need. Call up Cliff and the crew at cmpteamwear.com. First time listening? Well, you can change that by going to MattTalkOnline.com/get-short-time to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or listen on your favorite podcatcher at MattTalkOnline.com/listen.
This show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.